The following BLTV program is brought to you by O'Flaherty Law. Please enjoy.
Welcome to Learn About Law. My name is Kevin O'Flaherty from O'Flaherty Law, and today we're going to talk about how to determine a business's value for buy-sell agreements. A buy-sell agreement is a contract between owners of a closely held corporation, an LLC, or a partnership that allows them to plan in advance for what will happen if one of the owners in the business part ways upon the occurrence of a triggering event. So this might be the death or disability of an owner, the owner filing for bankruptcy or divorce, the owner's voluntary decision to terminate ownership based on a routine stock sale to a third party or based on retirement, or the company's decision to part ways with the owner. A good buy-sell agreement will include several elements, and that will start with what events will actually trigger the buy-sell agreement. In what situation is the company going to be required to or have the option to buy an exiting owner's stock? If a triggering event occurs, how will the ownership interest be valued? So what will the stock price be when the company has to buy that stock? What will the terms of the purchase be? Will it be an immediate lump sum, or will it be a payment plan over time? And where will the money come from? Is it going to be an insurance policy, a loan, a capital account within the company? So the purpose of this buy-sell agreement is to make sure that the owners have certainty about who they're going to be dealing with, and if one of the owners has to exit for either a foreseen or unforeseen reason, we have a plan in place for how we get that person out of the company and what price we're going to pay for their stock, whether we have to buy it, whether we have the right to buy it but don't have to, and it provides certainty for all concerned. We have an article and video at learn-about-law.com that's a more general article and video about buy-sell agreements and all the various considerations and components, so check that out. And we've got a couple more specific articles, but in this one, we're going to talk about how to value the ownership interest that you're purchasing. So you've decided that either you have the right or requirement that the remaining owners or the company will purchase the value of an exiting owner upon the occurrence of one of these triggering events. How do you determine what the value of the stock that they are going to purchase will be? Because you have to determine that ahead of time. It can't, otherwise the agreement really doesn't carry any force. Otherwise, you're in an optional negotiation to buy that person's stock, and you might as well not even have a buy-sell agreement unless you have a set value ahead of time. So there's three basic methods for assessing the value of someone's stock for the purpose of a buy-sell agreement. This is an agreed-upon dollar amount is one method. A fair market value at the time of sale is the second method. And the third is the use of a formula to determine the value, and we're going to talk about each of these. Agreed-upon value is basically saying that you set a price in the buy-sell agreement per share of stock, or what the value of the ownership interest is going to be, and that's a fixed price. This is the simplest way to do it, but the downside is it doesn't account for the growth of the company from the time that the buy-sell agreement is executed to the time that the stock is sold. So you might be in a ridiculous position where you say, I'm going to pay $5,000 per share if I have to buy an exiting owner stock, but the company has grown and the exiting owner stock would actually be worth $20,000 on the fair market. So you don't want someone to be kind of ripped off based on an arbitrary number that you set at the outset. So this usually is not a good idea, using a set value in the buy-sell agreement. It only really makes sense for very small and predictable businesses when the value of the business is so small that it's not really worth going through a lot of hoops to determine a valuation. Fair market value is the opposite. This is great for larger, more valuable ownership interests. It's the most accurate way to determine the value of the ownership interest, but it's also the most expensive because it usually means that you're going to hire a professional appraiser, and these can cost 5 figures. So the analysis you want to make is the value of the ownership interest going to be enough that the accuracy that you're going to get from an appraisal is worth the price? If an appraisal costs $10,000 and the swing in accuracy is going to be $100,000, then that makes a ton of sense. So if getting the appraisal will make it accurate to within $100,000 as opposed to within a couple $1,000s, you may want to consider building in an appraisal into your buy-sell agreement. If the ownership interest is so small that the cost of the appraisal will be more than the cost of the stock that you're getting, then it doesn't make any sense. Alternatively, if it's a situation where the owner is selling to a third party, and they the ownership agreement provides that the company has right of first refusal, well, then you don't need an appraisal. And this is really the best way to do it in this situation, because the remaining owners have the option to buy the exiting owner's stock just at whatever price is offered by the fair market. That whatever price the owner can fetch to a third party, the owners have the option to come in and pay that price. Fair market value is established by the market, not by an appraisal. And so for right of first refusal situations, this makes the most sense. Again, if it's a large enough ownership interest that it's worth paying for an appraisal, that's the other situation where this makes sense. The default and generally best way to do this is through a formula that is industry specific. So every industry will have its own specific method for determining how businesses in that industry should be valued. For a lot of people, it is a multiplier of cash flow. So you probably heard the term EBITDA, earnings before tax, depreciation, and amortization. So this is basically your cash flow, and you'll multiply this by a certain number or take a certain number of years cash flow, and that will be the value of the business. And you might factor in book value, which is the value of the actual assets that the company owns minus the liabilities that the company is liable for. But some combination of cash flow and book value in each industry can usually get you to, here's the general value of the company. Now, it's not as accurate as getting an appraisal done because it doesn't account for year-over-year growth necessarily. So a lot of times if you're going to just look at the past 3 years of cash flow, if that is accelerating, then you might get a reduced value of the company over what fair market value would be because you're looking at the crummy years along with the great later years. So it's not a perfect system, and it doesn't also account for intangible assets like intellectual property and things that might be factored in if the business were to be appraised. But for businesses that have ownership interests that are not large enough to warrant an appraisal, this is kind of the best method we have, and you can tailor it to something that's very industry specific and makes sense for your business within that industry. So a lot of the work in a buy-sell agreement is determining what this formula should be and what a fair way to value stock is if someone's required to buy it or has the option to buy it. Finally, let's talk about business value versus purchase price. So we've talked about so far how to actually value the business, but the purchase price might not be what the actual business value is. So the buy-sell agreement might provide for contingencies where if the company is required to buy stock upon the death of a person or disability of a person or maybe retirement, you may want to have a reduced purchase price from what the value is. So the first step is to establish what the market value is, and then the agreement might provide that the company can buy the stock at 60% of fair market value or some lower percentage. And the reason you would do this is because the company ideally would like to disincentivize the owner from selling to a third party or from disassociating with the company or doing something that would cause the owner to involuntarily be parted with the company, like embezzlement or something like that. So you want to disincentivize those things. The owners that have to buy the stock don't necessarily want to make a cash call for a capital contribution. So in order to balance the equities, they get a little bit of a sweetheart deal and get to buy the stock at a reduced price if they're required to do so, or if the other owner that's leaving triggers something that puts them in a bad position where they have to buy this stock. So you want to, when we talk about the ways of valuing the business, that's step one. And then second is the terms of the agreement. It might be a reduction of the value. It might be a payment over time as opposed to a lump sum payment. And that will vary kind of based on what triggering event you're talking about. So if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments section below this post at learn-about-law.com or below the video on our YouTube station. If you need some help, give us a call at 630-324-6666. We offer free consultations, and we have offices in many locations for your convenience. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts or watch your videos. Thank you so much for watching and listening.
Thanks so much for watching our video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Click the subscribe button for new videos every week, and download and review us on iTunes. Visit learn-about-law.com for other legal-related articles and videos. Visit our business podcast and video blog, seizeyourbusiness.com, and visit Making Real Estate Fun for real estate videos and podcasts. Call us at 630-324-6666 for a free consultation.